Sear, our non-stimulant, thermogenic, and recomposition agent. Sear is a super cool product because it's going to help you utilize turning your white adipose tissue, which is for storage of fat, into brown adipose tissue, which is going to help with energy production. So this is great to use for a competition prep or in your weight loss phase. So you can stack it with a stimulant-based thermogenic, or you could also use it in your off-season or muscle building phase to help keep you lean and mean. Sear.
Hello friends, welcome back to another episode of the Physique Code, and today is super special because we have two new guests. So it's me, Coach Christina, and then we have Coach Danika and Coach Daraja. And yay guys, I'm so excited to have you guys on here. Danika, it's been a minute, huh?
I know, it's been a hot minute. That's why I was like, hi, can I come on?
Right, and I want to make sure, I'm hoping I can get away with maybe planning stuff like this kind of often during Daraja's pregnancy. So if you guys didn't see, Daraja's pregnant, and so she has a whole new prep going on right now, a different form of bodybuilding. And you're what, 14 weeks?
14 weeks today. The baby is the size of a peach.
Woohoo! Almost big enough to feel swimming around.
I know. I was Googling. I was like, when am I going to feel it?
That's pretty close.
Soon. Yeah, it's coming.
So I was hoping today that we would just be able to talk about like changes you've made with how your body's responding to stuff, kind of where your head's at, because that can be a big one, especially for first-time moms and, well, I mean, for everybody, but like, because there's more unknown. And then, I mean, I'm sure that you have plans to, like, it's not like you just gave up bodybuilding and everything, or like working on your body for the rest of your life. And so, just kind of like where your head's at with that kind of stuff. So that's why we have Miss Danika on here and her, mindset and wellness and all of that to make sure that we're covering different things. But just really kind of diving into like what your experience had been with the first trimester and balancing.
Yeah, I love having you guys on because you guys have obviously had that experience and have competed after having kids and have also coached, moms after having kids. So it's definitely, and I posted a Q&A a couple weeks ago. I think it's been more than a couple weeks now. What is time anymore?
Right.
And I got a couple of good questions that I was like, this is perfect for the podcast and like just needs more context. But yeah, some changes to my routine were voluntary, some were not voluntary. So I'm excited to talk about it. But I think a big one was not necessarily like a big question, but a question that I've gotten and then that's, been a big topic that I think is good to start with is like, how do you deal with the changes to your body?
Right.
And like mentally, obviously it's a big change that is somewhat outside of your control. Obviously, to me, the goal, with getting pregnant was to just have a healthy pregnancy. I anticipate that my body's going to change. It's going to look way different than it has ever before. But I think to me, something that I feel very grateful for, and I think has also helped me in past preps in transitioning into reverse dieting and off season. I've always been someone that kind of embraces those changes because I know that they're necessary for the phase of life that I'm in, right? Like my prep body is necessary for prep. The changes that I see, the level of conditioning or body fat that I get is for the stage. It's not to validate myself or to improve my self-worth. And then when I transition to off season, I know that my body is going to change. Am I always comfortable about it? Not necessarily. Sometimes, I look back at old pictures and I'm like, damn, I was shredded. The outfits look different, clothes fit differently. But I also am like, I have more energy. I can eat out, within reason. I have, plans for that. I can travel without being stressed about where I'm going to get my protein from. So, there's benefits to that, right? I also, like I said, I have energy for more things. And I don't have to put so much pressure on myself to, body check every 3 minutes when I walk past the mirror, when I go to the bathroom, do I still see my abs? It's like, there's just a time and a place for that. And so I think that understanding has helped me now. Yes, I have days where I'm like, oh man, I feel a little thicker today, or my belly is, I don't have that snatched waist anymore. But I am also quickly pulled out of that because I'm like, there is a human growing in there. There's a life growing in there, and I need to sustain that in the healthiest way that I know how. And if I'm more concerned about my body image than I am about carrying this life, then, that's something I need to kind of like reel in and kind of like reflect on and think about, because my priorities are definitely necessarily needing to change.
Yeah. How did you get that baseline though? I think that's where like many people probably, that's where the challenge starts, is that they don't have that established baseline when it comes to like being able to shift priorities and weave in and out of different seasons of life, and know that there are different priorities in each season of life that you're existing in. Where do you think that like solid base came from?
It's like hard to really pinpoint, like even like when I established that. I think for me, I knew that it was important to have that baseline because my priority is also my mental well-being and my happiness. I think that above all else has to be a priority. And I know that stressing about my body image on a day-to-day basis and trying to maintain something that might necessarily be the healthiest for me mentally or physically, I know that I can't have that be in the forefront. I have to be happy with me regardless of what I look like, right? And that's, whatever your goal is, whether it's like fitness or pregnancy or whatever, I have to be happy with me. And that can't be tied to always a number on the scale, a pant size, a dress size, or what I see when I look in the mirror. So, and I think that also has just stemmed from work I've had to do on myself, evolving and growing from, past experiences with, toxic relationships, and kind of relearning how to value myself,
Mm.
having to find, the things about me that I love that have nothing to do with what I look like or what other people view of me.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's where like I would imagine that, then I may be wrong, but sometimes people looking in would be like, well, how does it come? Why is it just so easy for you? Or how does it come so easy for you to transition from season to season? And like,
It's a conscious
it
effort though.
yeah, like you have to put in the work, and it didn't just magically appear like in existence in your mind. You actually set the foundation so that you can use those tools and use that narrative for yourself. Like it didn't just poof exist. Like you had to really build that foundation for yourself so then you can apply it to your prep, your off season, and your pregnancy.
Yeah, and it's
Yeah.
having those reminders too for yourself, because like anything, there's never just a destination for goals like that. It's not like you just get there and you're just like, okay, I'm good. I no longer have to have these affirmations or reminders or conversations with myself where I catch, those thoughts, and I like, try to kind of just like flick them away. It's like I I still have those thoughts that reoccur. It's like, I look in the mirror and I'm like, "Oh, man, today it looks different." But, it's also like there's a purpose here. And so it would be nice if it was just an easy, like, okay, once I've achieved this mindset, I no longer have to work at it. You have to remember that too, like, you can't compare yourself. I think sometimes too, like, we don't realize how much, especially now with people on social media posting about, you know, it posting highlights of, what their body looks like, posting on their good days. They're not posting when they're PMSing. People are getting better at doing that. But if that's, you also have to be aware of your environment and what you're consuming and the images that you're consuming and how it sets expectations for how you look at yourself. I have also gotten good at filtering that. I use the mute button when I need to use it. I'm careful with what I click on because the algorithm is very quick to go, oh, you clicked on that. We're just going to show you more of this.
Yeah.
And to remember too, every body like is just so different. I honestly had no idea how my body would change in pregnancy. I had zero expectations really. And it's something that I just was so excited to embrace because I mean, when you really think about it, like creating a new life, bringing new life into this world, it's growing inside of you every day. Like that in itself, I'm like, how dare I look at my body and go, oh, it's like, girl, you're doing something so incredible that's also not accessible to everybody. Not everybody gets the privilege of that. And so I'm like, whatever comes with it, I'm going to do my best to be healthy and do all the things that I need to be doing to maintain a healthy pregnancy. But like, dude, that the time to worry about my body is like after.
There's so much in there that I feel like intertwines, which is like why I think you're in such a good place, like mentally with things right now, where I think that your work ethic, when it comes to those things, you bust your ass the same way you do in the gym. So when you say, I want to feel better in these seasons and I want to be able to roll with it and I want to do that stuff, you're putting that work in instead of just saying like, oh, it'll come with time. Like that takes a conscious effort. And so doing that. And then I think like this is a great example of like how I think bodybuilding or running or like whatever your sport is that challenges you and that pushes you where you have to make adjustments to get better at it and it takes a long time. It also like it bleeds into normal life because you know that if you put work in, you can literally reshape yourself. Like the Daraja I met years ago and like Daraja now, completely different shaped humans. And like that's because of work ethic and like the work that you've put in and consistency and stuff like that. And that can bleed over to pregnancy where I feel like for some people, it can either be like a free for all where it's like, okay, well, I'm not going to do anything and I'm just going to eat what my body needs and like stuff like that. And for some people, that can be great. But like most things, I think the moderate path where it's like, do as much as you can that brought you joy and made you feel good beforehand. Do that now, but then also give yourself that grace for the days where your body is like, excuse me, I'm making a person and I can't do that today.
That is what I was having less control over that than I expected was like completely new to me because I'm also obviously I've been competing for 6 years. I've always had control over my eating habits. Once I started competing and was conscious of that and that became a priority, not even just to like maintain a certain body composition, but just like for overall health. We know it's important to get an adequate amount of protein, an adequate amount of fruit and veggies, fiber, vitamins and minerals. That is always a priority for me. It's been so long since I've like really indulged in a lot of fast food. I'm not all that into a lot of fast food or fried food because I also just don't like the way it makes me feel on a day-to-day basis. But oh my God, like the protein was like the first to go out the window because I like the texture of it, the smell of it, looking at it, just like all of it made me want to throw up.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh my God. And like for a minute, you know, all I could really manage, and it was hard to even buy groceries because to be honest, like my food aversions and what was appetizing changed like almost every day. Sometimes like beginning of the day versus the end of the day was like different. So I was like buying these things and then the next day I was like, well, this now doesn't really look all that good. And so I was like, for a minute I was like, dang, like, I'm being really unhealthy. I kind of felt like I was failing at maintaining this healthy pregnancy from the get-go. And it really didn't hit until like 6 weeks, just to like put a good marker on it. I felt pretty normal up until week 6. Once week 6 hit, I was freaking fatigued. Like getting up to do anything sounded like, impossible. Like even like taking a shower, I was like dragging ass. Taking the dogs out, like, I mean, I really didn't exercise. I haven't really exercised or like worked out or trained in probably a little over 2 months. because I just didn't feel physically capable. And so I was like, well, damn, I guess I'll just sleep, and then I'll wake up, and then I'll grab some water, and then I'll go back to sleep. It was like that was my routine. Yeah. I was not one of the lucky few, the unicorns that like don't have any symptoms.
And I feel like, finding out so early, that can be the hard part too, because then you're almost like waiting for it and then having it show up around 6 weeks. And it's like, oh my God, I have like 7 weeks of this left. With switching over to your second trimester, do you feel better?
Yes. Like when I wake up and I'm like, oh, I feel normal. I'm like, thank God. And then I'm like, okay, let's just maintain this for the rest of the day. So like I it would come and go. So like I'd have a couple days where I'm like, oh, I feel good. I'm not nauseous when I wake up. I'm up moving around. I don't feel like I need to just kind of collapse back into hibernation. And so I would like, oh, let me be productive. And then, that by the end of the day, I was like feeling like shit again. And then I'd wake up the next day and I'm like instant regret of like trying to do all the things. Um, and it was nice because like talking to friends who've had kids and like being on social media and like seeing all these other mom pages, you realize how normal that is and how like it's not something to beat yourself up about when you do have those days where you're just like, I haven't moved off the couch in hours.
Yeah.
And for people who are, generally quite productive and like value their productivity, that's something that I identify with, is like just being able to just do it all. I'm also someone who struggles with like marking things off their checklist and adding more things to do. So having to like, take naps ever after, doing a few check-ins or having a phone call and like having to just like rest was like, it's like just having a new body essentially. But it was nice to know that I'm not the only one that struggles with that. I mean, you guys have had, more than one kid. Christina, you've had 4. Danica, you have 2, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I'm like, it's just like, what was like your experience? Like, I know it has been a while, but like as a new mom.
Danica, why don't you dive into it?
I would say I had an extra layer of having type 1 diabetes. So that was a lot to navigate, just like the fearfulness of like, I had to keep like super, so my average is between like 80 and 120 would I keep my blood sugars, but for pregnancy, you have to stay between like 70 and 90. And so that was exhausting. Like mentally, that was exhausting. With Venna, so I'll talk about a few things. So with Venna, it was right after I did the Yorton Cup, and I stupidly prepped for the Arnold too, and I got way, way, way too lean, and I put my body in like a really bad place. My hormones were really messed up, and we wanted to get pregnant. And I had that experience of like, but I don't want to gain weight, And my OB was like, you will never get pregnant if you don't increase your weight to this number. And that was a flip for me to be like, oh my gosh, like how silly of me to be like trying to maintain something where like I'm trying
out of it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It was a quick snap. I was like, who are you? Like, who do you think you are? And I got to that weight. I started my cycle. I was able to get pregnant. With Ravenna, I actually had really bad like food aversions to protein, to anything fruity. Like I love gum, so like fruity gum, like I couldn't smell it, I couldn't be near it. And I thought to myself, like, this is so interesting to try to maintain blood sugars, to have food aversions, and like not have energy. I was also in-person training, so I was a personal trainer then, and I remember just telling my clients, like, I will not spot you during this exercise because I'm going to sit down and like I'm not going to do anything.
Yeah.
But that was a very healthy pregnancy. and my goal was obviously to have a healthy pregnancy. And I lifted the whole way through. So I did, but like here and there, it was very spotty of like keeping in mind what my body wanted, just like you were doing. With Jada, it was very different. So Jada was in Alabama and I didn't have as much work. So I worked from home. I napped daily naps. And Venna was like my nap queen too. I was like, time for a nap. All right, let's do this, girlfriend. I would cry because of like how tired I was. And I also had a toddler. Like I just didn't understand how, like why I was so tired. In those moments, I'd be like, you know what? I'm probably building a liver today. So like
Right.
probably why I'm tired. Like today
Feels complex.
today was a liver and tomorrow will be a heart and I should be tired because of that.
Yeah.
And with that too, trying to maintain like just being productive, but listening to your body and taking rest and like making sure to remind yourself of like why your body is tired, that like you're not lazy, like you're doing a really big thing. This doesn't equate to being lazy. And again, having intense food aversions, all I wanted with Jada, and I wanted crisp, crunchy stuff like watermelon, cucumbers, peppers, like crisp, crunchy. But then I also just wanted peanut butter and popcorn. Like I just wanted popcorn poured into a peanut butter jar and just like eating, like mixing it up together and like having, that's all I didn't want my protein shakes at all. I didn't want any of eggs. I didn't want chicken. I had a lot of aversions to protein and I strive to get them in. Like I remember being like, what if I plug my nose and like eat at the same time, like just to get this protein in? And sometimes that worked. But that rest was so important. And so going, like recognizing if I'm crying so much that like I'm tired, your body will speak to you and like your body tells you like, hey, chill the F out. Like you don't need to do anything today. The world is not going to end just because you weren't able to like fold the laundry or like
no one's gonna know, right?
No one's gonna know. It's gonna be okay.
But your body will. And like that's the hard part, I think, is that people think that if they do just push through it and they just like, oh, well, so and so can still get all of these workouts in and it kept them thin. And then they'll keep trying to do that. Your body will hands down choose that baby first in all those situations. And your bones will be the ones missing minerals and having everything pulled from them. And your body is going to suffer because of it. And you're going to feel like dog shit. And then that's why like postpartum, those same people, and like, I've been this person. You turn around postpartum then after trying to beat yourself into the ground during a pregnancy that you're not in the control of and try to do it then, except for now you have a tiny person screaming at you and like boobs leaking and like stuff like that. And it's like, you're both in diapers. It's a whole other like thing to have to worry about. And so I'm like so excited for you with having your head in a good space. I think that's going to be such a game changer.
Absolutely. And not pushing yourself, like, just like you said, Christina, with Venna, it was so different. I was actually able to do my workouts way more. With Jada, I remember driving to the gym and dropping Venna off and just sitting like in the lobby being like, this is a bad idea. Like, this is like, I'm crying and I haven't even stepped into the gym yet. Like, I've done nothing. And me being like, is it really worth it? Like, are you really going to have an effective workout at that point? No. And two, like, what is it all for? Like, there is nothing, like, my baby isn't going to be like, you know what, mom, thank you so much for doing that shoulder workout. Like, I appreciate you. Like, no, that's not going to happen. So many times I would drive all the way there, stop and turn my ass around and be like, come on, you're smarter than this. Like,
I don't even have a gym membership right now. Like we live in an apartment complex because we're like looking for a house since we aren't familiar with Denver at all.
Yeah.
And our apartment complex has like a pretty cute gym. So I was like, I'm not even gonna invest in a gym membership at this point
Yeah.
until I can actually like physically do that. Like honestly, when you like talking about the drive to the gym, for me, it's like driving to the grocery store. Like I can't even tell you, I've used Instacart at this point like so many times because I can like you can physically feel your battery drain. Like
Mm.
it can probably last a good, well, at least it's better now. But I honestly, for that like period where I was like on the struggle bus, like driving to the grocery store, even like smelling the air, I was like, I hate it here. And then walking around with my cart, I'm like having to like take a breather, like walking around the aisles. I'm like, I can't do this. And then of course I would just like see like chips or stuff that like I hadn't planned on buying. Um,
You
but
need
yeah, the grocery store was my workout for a hot minute, and now it's just taking my dogs out for a walk, which is like now tolerable. But for a
that.
while it was not.
With a lot of that, like it's because you're like with your blood volume and the huge increase that it goes through in that first trimester while it's trying to prepare to like build a whole placenta, like outside of just like the person
Yeah,
that
I
you're
forget about that.
like
I like
the
the growing a
person
whole organ.
Yeah.
like massive organ um that is so weird. And building that alone, it has just got to be a huge pain in the ass. But like I'll talk to people that just feel like they're out of shape, and then like you had said where you felt like you were not doing the whole healthy pregnancy like from the get-go, and it's really easy to be like, well, shit, there's 3 trimesters and one I tried to survive. And
Me too.
like that's all you have to do. I always tell everybody like breakfast cereal, the sugary, the better. Like just lean on that kind of stuff for the most part because
There's Lucky Charms in my cabinet right now because
dude, Riker has to have cinnamon toast crunch in his DNA. Like for sure. Like that was all I could eat. And then my favorite part is it's fortified to high heaven. And so it's loaded with iron and like all of that. So at least it's like checking some boxes when it's like that or nothing. I love breakfast cereal for that. And then just walk. Like, and if it's the grocery store or even just trying to get stuff done around the house or having like, I think dogs are like a great thing in that situation because they become like the bare minimum and the maximum effort at the same time, where it's like, if you checked that box, you and baby are good to go. Like, you're not going to lose everything. That can be enough sometimes to kind of like pull you out of an energy funk too, is just go get some sunshine and like,
yes, I've
so
been definitely like trying to
when our
take it.
weather's not terrible, like, do you have good weather down where you're at?
It's been like it was cloudy this morning, but it's been like pretty sunny out for the most part. So I've been like we have a little porch, so I've just been going out and just like a flower.
I'm so jealous. It's so gloomy up
Soak it
here.
up.
Last night we had the craziest hailstorm. Did that hit down by you guys?
Oh, no, not at all.
Denver. Okay. Like we're in the same area and we could literally be having like completely different like
Yeah.
climates right now. So last night up here, it was a good like 40 minutes of like giant hail and rain and wind and everything. And so sleep wise,
You're like, it's June, so what are we doing here?
it's just starting. It'll do this until like November. So
I will say though, like it's not like we're talking about like the shittier parts of it, and like yes, some of it kind of sucks, and like this is also why I can see why people are like, ew, why would anybody want to get pregnant? But the reward is just so, I haven't even met it yet. We don't even know the sex yet, which we're hoping to find out my appointments in a couple of days, where we'll do like all the blood work, and we are going to do like the genetic testing to make sure everything looks good. But we'll find out hopefully. Even like the ultrasound might be able to tell us, because at 14, I'll be 14 and a half weeks then. We should be able to know. But we want to be surprised. So we're gonna do like a little cake that I just love that. Plus, I was like, maybe we should do something more creative because everybody and their mom now is doing the cute little like champagne glass in the cake reveal.
Yeah.
But I was also like, "Ugh, I bet she kind of just wants some cake." So we're just
I love it. That's fantastic.
No.
That
But
is,
I will say, like, the one of the funnier parts, like, my first, because I was researching. I'm such a, like, need to know kind of girl. I was, like, researching and watching so many YouTube videos on, like, how can you tell if you're pregnant before you miss your period, which honestly, realistically, at this point, you really can't, because so many of the symptoms overlap with PMS. So, like, you really have to either just, like, wait it out or just take hella tests, which I did. I bought, like, the cheap ones from Pregmate that you can get off Amazon. There's like a pack of like 25, 50, 100. So I just peed on so many sticks, and we found out like a week early. I like saw the faintest line, and I was like, "Oh, what?" Because it was also something, and I've talked about this on my Instagram before. Obviously, I have endometriosis, and like I have also tentatively been diagnosed with PCOS just based off of ultrasounds. And like I've had symptoms in the past, but so I was like, I don't really know how long it's going to take for us to get pregnant realistically, because they tell you, when you struggle with those conditions that um the rates of infertility are higher, and there's, risks of miscarriage and blah blah blah, which, sorry if that's a trigger word for you. But I was like, let's just start trying and see what happens. I also am a diligent tracker of my cycles because of those conditions. So I was like, ovulation window, bang, 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 bang. I used the little test strips, and within a month, we actually ended up pregnant. So I was like, holy shit, it's like real. And then of course I, watched as the lines got darker, because, that just means that HCG is increasing. And then I just wanted to make sure that it stayed that way until we had our first appointment, which wasn't until 9 weeks, just because of the move. I didn't want to like do one appointment and then have to, because it was all within the same, couple of weeks. Like I found out I was pregnant, and the week later we were moving. So, um, honestly, the first symptom I got was I felt like I had a raging, like, either allergy attack or like a head cold, because my sinuses were so congested to the like point where like my eyes, when I would wake up, were like mucusy and like crusted over. I was like, this is disgusting. But I also read that that's a symptom of, pregnancy because of the increase in blood volume.
Yep.
That was the first like tell sign, other than like missing my period. And then like the other fun part was like I found a box of tampons. I was like, don't need those anymore. Like, away. I was so proud. I was so proud of that.
Oh,
But
the best. And then breastfeeding keeps it away for like some people. So I was
oh,
able to avoid it for like a year after having Claire. And I was like, oh
really?
yeah. When it came back, I was so sad. It was like 2 weeks before her birthday. And I was like, oh man.
Yeah, I don't miss her. I don't miss her at all. She can stay gone.
No fun.
All of the stuff that you talked about with like, I mean, it's good to talk about the bumps in the road too. I feel like it sets you up for being able to pivot and bend and weave when you have a baby. Like, because that shit isn't like lined up beautifully. Like you have no clue what you're getting yourself into. And so pregnancy kind of is like the precursor to like helping you to get in a good mindset, to bend and weave, to like listen to your body, to be more mindful, to give yourself grace. Like, because when you do have a baby and like that baby's in your world, it changes the same as your world is changing now. Like it's still going to change. It doesn't, just because pregnancy is done doesn't mean that like all things are going to go back to how they were before.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's like one of the things that, where like now putting in that work and like learning from that stuff just helps carry you through like everything. Like me going and running a couple of weeks ago, like I keep in my mind like what I went through with like labor and delivery. And I'm like, you did that for that long and you didn't die. Keep running. Like you can do this.
I was
And
literally thinking that the other day. I was like, dude, if I can endure like even just the first trimester, I haven't even had the baby yet and gone through labor. I'm like, dude, that was gonna be a fucking breeze. Are you kidding me?
right.
I need
It's
like
like it teaches you can handle so much more than you think you can. And having your head in the right place with that, where, if you do see it as like, I better get, good at being flexible and being able to pivot and, okay, how can I make this work a little bit better? Like, I think that's where systems coming into place and trying to just have things be very like I love prioritized to-do lists for that kind of stuff, where like I'll go through the things that need to be done, and like maybe to other people there's some stuff that seems more important, but it's like, what's the thing that's gonna like kill me on the inside if I don't at least do that one thing, which normally it's gonna be like, okay, go for a walk, or something that like makes us feel like we're more in control of our day. And then like at least get that kind of stuff done. And then to Danica's point, where like once the baby's around and they're in charge, like your timeline is theirs, and the time to get shit done is theirs. And so that's why my way of like attacking every day is like hit the ground running and get as much done like when I can, because at some point it's all going to go to shit and I'm no longer going to be in control, and I'm going to have to react to whatever disaster they've caused and stuff. And so it's like, when things are good, run with it, and then when it
I
gets
have to,
relax.
I'm sorry. What?
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, like, am also just grateful, super grateful to have a very supportive husband who's like, just because like Danica said, like I've had times where like I have cried just because I'm just like, why am I so tired? And Keith is like reminding me, he's like, babe, it's fine, like it's okay. And like he's just also just readily like, I will help. Like obviously we just moved in, so there's a lot of unpacking to do and like just tidying and things that we need to get done. And he's just been so awesome at like kind of stepping up and doing a lot of the things that like typically I would be doing, just because that's like my area of expertise. He's not like the most like, I need to have things done and organized right away. And to me, I'm like, this shit is just staring at me like, put me away. And I'm like, I'm too tired to do it. So
I want to, but I can't.
oh, I was like on Thumbtack, like looking like maybe I just need to hire somebody to come help me unpack this apartment. Like it's not even that big of a task, but like when you are struggling with those first trimester symptoms, like it seems like the biggest mountain to climb. So, and I'm a very like timeline oriented kind of person. I'm like, I don't want to be in here for 4 or 5 months with like boxes still unpacked. So plus, you want to make it feel like a home. And then I'm like, the nursery, we have to get ready. We have all this stuff to put in here. And I'm like, you just start spiraling. But yeah, thankfully, it's important to ask for help. Like, don't be too proud to ask for that extra hand when you need it. And hopefully you get the support that you need, because it's good to have that.
That's hard sometimes. Well, I know that that's hard for me. I don't do
It is.
well asking for help at all.
I
At all. But it's so important. I mean, I say this to all my clients. I'm like, you should ask for support and help. And they're like, okay, Danica.
Yeah.
But
Like,
it's hard. It's hard when like when you are that type of person that like you value, like we've said before, you value your productivity, but that doesn't make you less than just because you needed assistance with something. Like if anything, and I'm saying this also to myself, but if anything, it makes you a little bit stronger to be able to say like, actually in this moment, it would really benefit me if someone else could just empty this out, or if someone else could do this. It's not that I can't do it. It's not an impossible thing. It's just that right now it doesn't benefit me in any way, and it would benefit me more to ask for help.
right.
Delegation, where it's at. Just
There's
look
no
at it that way.
There's no
Like,
shame in that.
you just gotta outsource when you can with some of that stuff.
Yes. Yes.
So you said you had posted to your stories. Did you have some of those questions that people had asked you from that, or has there been any big ones that people have been coming out with?
There weren't any big ones. The ones that I know, like I was asked about was like, how has my routine changed? Like, how have my workouts changed? I haven't been.
So, like, they're not happening.
Uh, And I think like, you know, the big one that we touched on was like the weight gain and the body change. And then we talked about that for a good while. Um, and to be honest, I think it's just to just summarize that, like it's just so important to remember like you are growing a life. And if you're signing up for this, which is pregnancy, you just need to continue to do the work on, because like when you're postpartum, you don't want to still be struggling with that so much so that your body image is like over overtaking your like just survival, like need to survive
Right.
postpartum,
Yeah.
your pregnancy. um that's you already have so much like, I mean, we all know that the anxieties and depression can increase in those periods of time. And if you're already loading your plate with maintaining a certain body image on top of all of the things that you're now having to worry about, and then postpartum, there's lack of sleep, you have this baby to keep alive, and there's this all of this other survival mode stuff that you have to go through. I'm talking about it as if I've experienced it already, but you just don't want to have that on your plate when you don't need it on your plate. It's
Right.
just it's
Yeah.
it's on the like totem pole, it's like way down, buried very deep on the list of priorities of things that you need to worry about.
Right. And, it's hard because like, especially talking to people where I've had clients that have to work super hard to get pregnant. And it's like, they've gone through
Yeah.
all of these shots and all of this work and all of this, time and money and like heartache to make it happen. And then I'll talk to some people that are like, but I want to make sure that I gain as little as I absolutely have to. Like, how much is that? It's like 15 pounds, right? And they start thinking that way. And it's like, whoa, like we've been doing all of this to get the baby in there. We can't start being like reckless with that now. And so I think like a big tool with that, if it's somebody like in your situation where you know what your normal foods look like if like aversions clear up, say you can get back to normal foods and things like that, what your normal plate looks like, how you normally plan your days and stuff. At that point, I usually continue to track, and I'll like continue weighing things out and stuff like that throughout my pregnancy once I get back into a rhythm. But I look at targets more as like minimums as opposed to maximums. And then
It's even a range. Like
yeah,
have
I'm not very strict with it, but with most stuff, I'll look at it as like, I need to hit at least this much protein, at least this many carbs, especially like if I've not been able to eat a lot, like at some point. Because like with Claire, I lost 8 pounds in my first trimester because I got so sick with her that I actually like went down. And then as soon as that eased up going into the second trimester, I gained all of that back and then like 5 pounds and was like, oh shit, because it came on like super quick. But I mean, it felt better because like I felt
yeah.
terrible before. Um,
My friend lose 12 pounds because she like couldn't keep anything down. She was
Yeah.
throwing.
It's crazy. And it's so different from like person to person too with that. I started off with each kid at like a different weight and like a different muscularity really for like each one of them. Because like I was working out when I got pregnant with Riker, but I mean, that was 11 years ago. And I was very much cardio first and like would lift, but not really like the way I would now and stuff like that. And then slowly got into competing after having Cora, our second. And then now it's, all of this is my whole life now. But no matter what, where I started at or like what I was doing, I gained between 29 and 32 pounds with every single kid.
Mhm.
And that was whether or not I was like maniacal about tracking and the gym, or, I mean, the hardest one with Claire, I had already signed up for a marathon and it was $115 that I easily could have just been like, okay, I guess I'm not going to do that because it was going to happen when I was 5 months pregnant. But because I'm annoying, I was like, well, I guess I'm running a marathon. And so I went and like tried to train for it, found out I was pregnant in like June, I think, and the race was in October. And so like just getting into the second trimester, which means my first trimester was a bulk of when like the big parts of your training are supposed to happen. And I just had to sit down for like 7 weeks. And it was just like, well, now what do I do? And so like couldn't decide what to do with the race and like set very low expectations for it. But I went from being like absolute death and like losing weight because I couldn't keep anything down and all of that through like September. And then it was in October and it went fine. Ran a whole ass marathon with her.
Which, as a disclaimer, that's not normal for.
It was only like 8 minutes slower than the one I just did.
Oh my God.
Now I'll tell you, there were so many times during it that I was like, this is stupid. And I tried to tell myself, like, Christina, you shouldn't be doing this. You should, at every cop, because there's always like cops and little golf carts and like stuff like that along the course, like, you should tell this next guy, you need a rest and he should take you home. And then I'd get to him and be like, I'll tell the next one. And like, I would just I'd like, I should do a pelvic floor check. And I'd like, yep, I bet she doesn't like it in there. And I'm like, no, Christina, your pelvic floor is fine. And like,
Oh my gosh. I couldn't imagine doing that.
I'm telling you though, like that's the second trimester rebound that like can happen and that can be a lot of fun and like play with. But I was able to do that during her pregnancy, but it didn't mean that postpartum was like magically any easier than the other ones either. Like I think Ben's postpartum was probably a lot easier. I went into this one super cocky because I was like, oh, I've already done it 3 times. And I came out significantly hotter each one. Like I was always super stoked on where I got. And
That's
so I was like, 4 will be super, like it's going to be great. And I mean, I'm like stoked at where I'm at now that she's like a little over 2 and stuff, but it was harder. And because I had 4 people running around and talking to me, like working full time now and like stuff like that. And so that was like a big thing where I was like, I could kill myself to try and lose all the baby weight and like hold all of these expectations and like do all of that at the beginning. But I had never been able to make it past 7 months with breastfeeding. And like, I had never been able to exclusively breastfeed for that long. And with Claire, I had like put that as a priority. I was like, well, I really want those things to happen because this is the last time I get to go and do these things. And so like that timeline had to drag out a lot. And we made it to like 21 months, I think, with breastfeeding. But like even then, she was my 4th baby, 4th postpartum and stuff like that. And I see Danika in person when I was like not even a year postpartum and like pouted to her the whole time about how terrible postpartum is and like expectations and like all of that stuff. It's like the funny part with all of it is every pregnancy is so like uniquely its own, but then also pre-programmed by you and the baby. And there's only so much you can do. Like
how long did it take you guys to like actually feel in a good rhythm and like back to normal postpartum? Like I've seen, they have like, I know I've heard about like the 40-day whatever,
like
or
a
like
lion.
Yeah. And then I've also seen like anywhere between like 6 to 8 weeks, like realistically is
To feel better, to feel like back into
normal.
as far as like, I would even say, because obviously like it's nice that like working from home and like having a desk job isn't as taxing. So I think for me, one of the things that I'm like struggling with navigating or like thinking about is like, okay, realistically, because if it were up to me, I'd be like, give me a month, I'm back at it, like don't.
Yeah.
But I think that
I have a pelvic floor PT. I'll send you to first. That's not too far from you.
but I think like to set like expectations for like when I should be even getting back to work. It's like I don't want to underestimate how much time I'm gonna need, but I also don't want to like be twiddling my thumbs either after 6 weeks.
Well, I think that also depends on the amount of like what you choose as a mommy for what you want to do. Like I have some friends who are like, and it's not my personal opinion of like, this isn't what I would do, but they were like, my kid is going right into daycare. And like, and I'm going to get right back to work. And like, they didn't want to breastfeed. They wanted their kid back. They wanted their kid back in daycare and they wanted to, or not back, but into daycare. And like, that's how they manage theirs. So for them, they may have felt normal or back into a rhythm right away. But like I breastfed both of my kiddos, and then is probably the best example because I was fitness director and I wanted to go back into work, but I had daycare right across the street. It was part of the facility. And I breastfed up until 8 months with her. And I think it was like 13 months with Jada, but I was able to like still pump. I was able to like take time to do that. I put that into my schedule, and that was different from like Jada, I breastfed for a really long time and I didn't have a lot of work, and my focus was like keeping the 2 humans alive. Like that was pretty, and like making sure I could survive Alabama. Like that was it. So I think it's all dependent too of like, what is your relationship gonna be when it comes to like, now I'm a mommy, now I have a human. Do I want to breastfeed? Am I able to breastfeed? Some mommies can't. And then do I want to have the kiddo home with me? Like, how is that going to look? Because you could potentially, like, it could last longer. Does that make sense? Like, depending on how much time you are with the child and what you are doing with your body too. So it could feel like you're back into routine really quickly, or not at all, right? But that's part of adjusting. You won't ever feel back into like your routine. It's not, you can't go back. It's going to be a new routine.
It's always new. It's
Yeah.
always going to be new and shifting. It's more like, so I think if you have a job similar, like if people listening, having something similar to ours, knowing you, say things go like pretty, like relatively easy with stuff, and even having like normal breastfeeding struggles, but like say there's no big thing with recovery or like things like that. I know I get stir crazy about week 2. And then I'm like, I need to do something else besides hang out with the potato who just wants me to feed it and it poops all the time. And then I want to go do shit. And so then the hard part then is like, you are not ready to go to the gym. I don't care how much you think you are. Absolutely not. Going for a walk is one thing. Doing some things like, I love wearing like baby carriers and stuff like that. And then just doing like standing up and out of the chair and not using your hands while the baby's strapped to you. And then getting used to like turning your core on and like moving, that kind of stuff up to like the 6 to 8 week mark. Could you go and do way more and have people before? Yeah. I went and ran a mile 6 days after giving birth to Riker and had posted it to like Facebook, because I think we didn't even have Instagram back then. And thankfully my doula called me and was like, Christina, what the fuck? And like, it was before I knew like any of this stuff. And she was like, your uterus will just fall out of you. And I was so proud of myself. And because his birthday just happened, that like popped up on my like Facebook memories. And I was like, oh, if that Christina could see me now, where I'm like, no, everybody. But so like walking and just getting used to having baby go everywhere with you. That's enough. That can be enough to keep your brain busy and stuff. But getting good at that, I think, is the first thing like to work on, as opposed to when can I get back to the gym? When people always want, I don't think you're going to do this, but like want to diet right away and stuff. And I'm like, wait, like, let's get your milk supply if that's a path you choose. Like, I
will say I want to breastfeed. I'm just like, I'm such a, like, there are just some things that I'm very like kind of hippie-ish about. And I wouldn't even say that's like hippie, but I want that connection with my baby. So God willing, I can breastfeed. I'm just like, I just come here. Like,
and it's pretty cool. Like when I remember being like, do I want to do this breastfeeding thing? But then when it happens, this is also my experience. So I don't know, it's like, how cool that like our body makes milk and like it just comes right out of our tit, and like a child can live off of that. Like,
it's so
and there's
convenient
like
too.
It's just amazing. And if they get like any infection or anything, just squirt a little bit on there,
Yeah.
and then they're good to
You
go.
answered everything. Breast milk. Did you
Yeah.
go, oh, their stomach hurts? Breast milk.
I
Breast
definitely
milk
plan on
back.
trying.
Breast
I'm
milk.
gonna make my husband try it too. I told Keith, I was like, we're
Oh
both.
yeah.
It's
I
like,
think I gave it to my I gave it my brother one time was like, "Hey, did you save any of your breast milk? Because I heard that shit is anabolic." And I was like, I
Shut
mean,
up.
it's pretty magical. Like it's really good stuff. Cures everything.
He's probably like, oh, let me see if I can just inject it.
they sell it for like, it's something like $4 an ounce.
Yeah.
Can you
Yeah.
imagine? So
I
I was
know.
always like a low
I mean,
supply person.
what people are choosing to do with that breast milk, though, we won't assume.
Hey, that's one of those things though, where like if I was a person that had an oversupply and found out that people were buying it for that much, like
Fuck OnlyFans. I'm gonna sell my breast milk.
fuck, I'd have like 3 deep freezers out in my fridge. I'd be sitting here on every podcast. Bonk, 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 bonk.
Oh my God, that's so
Like,
funny.
That is
hey,
too funny.
cash cow right there.
Oh my gosh, that's
But
too
like
funny.
that's one of those things too, where with trying to get pregnant, with pregnancy, labor and delivery, parenting, breastfeeding's right up there, where there's moments where it's the most incredible thing and you sit there and you're like, this is everything I've ever wanted it to be. And in the beginning, 90% of it is going to be like, there's no fucking way this is how this is supposed to be. Everything is wrong. Why doesn't it work? It's not supposed to hurt, right? They said it was natural. And
Oh,
like, there's all of
Yeah.
this where it can be so hard. But like, truly, my favorite thing about all of motherhood and is that no matter how much it kicks your ass, if you stand up and you're like, thank you, can I have another? Like you get so much stronger for it. And like
yeah.
in every other aspect of your life and that's why moms get shit done because you just have to. Like at some point
Absolutely.
you just have to. And then it's about figuring out like boundaries. I think that was my favorite part when this conversation started, is that you laid out a lot of like where your head was at with stuff, and you've set boundaries, but not expectations.
Mhm.
And I think that's a super healthy way to go into it, where it's like, this is what I'm going to ask of myself. This is what I'm not going to, and like things like that. And then just roll with the punches and shit. That sounds like the smoothest sailing you can ask for.
Yeah, absolutely. And being super honest, I was going to say this in the beginning, but when people are like, well, I don't want to gain any weight during pregnancy, like being honest and be like, you're going to. And like, I don't want my body to change. It's going to, and that's okay. Or I want my body back exactly how it was. It's not going to be like,
Yeah.
and it shouldn't be like
Right.
you are evolving inside and out. Like there is evolution that's happening. Like it's not going to be exactly what you expect it to be. And that's a beautiful thing. The second you like let that go, then you're like, oh, actually, like I have a completely different perspective on this, and I don't have to just have this other stressor over me, holding me down. Like I can actually embrace all the changes, that like good and bad, because you again are going to come out of it okay. Like it's going to be okay.
It's funny, I watched when like the week after I found out I was pregnant, I watched What to Expect When You're Expecting.
Oh my God, I love that.
Such a funny movie, honestly.
Yeah.
But it was just like I really just watched it because like it's also just one of those things where like that's that time frame where like obviously everybody chooses to announce their pregnancy at different times and like what's comfortable for them. But I was like, this is the only way I can like connect with anybody that's gone through a pregnancy, and like kind of see, what different experiences are like. Because I love that movie for that reason. Um,
Mhm.
but I forget her name. It's not Chelsea Handler. The one that had like the worst pregnancy experience. So she's like, I hate it. I'm so uncomfortable. And like,
who the actress was for that one. I have to
it
look
was
it up.
just- it was funny, but I was like, it could be like that, or it could be like, Cameron Diaz's pregnancy where she was like working out the whole time.
Right.
But also like,
Brooklyn Decker. So Vic laughed because the way she has the baby, or like the one of it where she like sneezes it out.
yeah, it was twins. the twins that she
Yeah,
had,
that was
like,
like how Ben's was. He was my easiest delivery by far. And so Vic always picked on me and he was like, none of it can be that hard if you can have a Brooklyn Decker delivery. And I'm like, yeah, but Ben was like an accident delivery. Like that was just super easy. Like,
yeah,
I've heard
no.
the other ones are such a good representation. I haven't watched that in so long. Listen, if you're trying to get pregnant, go watch that movie because it cracks me up.
And but like even just like how you carry too, it was
Yeah.
like it's like you can't even, because like it also depends on where your uterus sits and how it's tilted. Like some people don't show for a while, and it's like even things like that where you might look at someone who's 4 months pregnant who doesn't have any, belly yet, and you're like, oh, I wish, I could be that
Yeah.
cute. And it's like you never know, she might be like, I wish I was showing, like I'm 4 months pregnant, like
Yeah.
where's my belly. And it's like you don't romanticize somebody else's experience
Right.
because it's different than yours. Like it's just, yeah, you need to just also learn how to celebrate your body for what it's capable of at that point.
Yeah.
But and I've talked about that already, but I'm also just obviously someone who's just so excited at the idea of pregnancy and like thinks it's the coolest thing in the world. So I might not be the best reference for people who struggle with the things like that. But
No, I
I
think it is. I think it's a good reminder that like it's a good thing because what are you gonna do? Sit there and be like, I wish I hadn't had my daughter because now I have stretch marks. Like, and are you gonna be resentful? It ends up being you're either gonna resent your daughter or your body for the rest of your life, and like both of those options suck.
even
Like,
stretch marks, like
Right.
to be honest, for me, and I like in school you learn about like what's her like, well, not everybody learns about this, but my field, we definitely discussed a lot of anatomy, physiology, genetics, like hereditary things. And one of the things we learned was stretch marks can even be hereditary. It's not necessarily
Yeah.
always how much weight you gain, or how you carry. And so that's honestly one of the things that I'm like, if it happens, it happens. How it can impact my competitive career. Honestly, at this point, like that's again, not the concern. Like
Right.
I'm having this baby, whatever comes of that, with my body, we'll deal with it after the fact. But yeah, I'm rubbing, a little belly butter on my belly, even though
Yeah.
it's not super stretched out yet. But I'm doing all the things I can to keep the skin hydrated. I've heard that helps a lot. And just being proactive with that. But, you know, it is what it is.
yeah, there's only
Right.
so much you
Right.
can do, and like, like banging your head against a wall trying to stop it isn't gonna get you
No.
anywhere. One of those
No,
things I
not
know
at all.
with.
So,
Yeah.
Well, you guys got anything you can think of that we could wrap up a little bit? I'm hoping we schedule more throughout your
I
pregnancy.
know, I know. And to be honest, like I do have a little bit of a pouch now. It kind of just like sticks out there like a little, which I love. Keith like thinks it's the cutest thing in the world. He's like, look at you. And I'm like, I know. And he just likes to, I love when he starts to rub my belly now, which is nice. And I just think it's like the most soothing thing. So like if I am feeling uncomfortable, I'm just like, and that was one of the things that was weird too, like just to kind of like wrap up, but like for whatever reason, like whenever I am feeling sick, he like him just being around me or like his touch or like his
Mhm.
like cuddles make me feel like it's the best medicine right now because obviously I
Yeah.
can't do anything other than that, but I just thought that was like the coolest thing. It was to feel just like his touch or him like being home like from work. I like instantly feel better. I'm like, how cute is that?
You're getting
Listen,
you're
man.
getting his energy.
Yeah.
Yes.
The name
Yeah.
of the game. You're just like, you need all the love hormones.
Yeah. I've even heard like oxytocin, like those like 6-second kisses or like the hugs or embraces, like can even help. So he's my replacement for THC.
There you go.
During like labor and delivery, there's a whole I have books for you to read that are like fun and empowering, not like the scary ones. But there's Ina, I always want to mix her up with Ina Garten, the like chef, but it's Ina May Gaskin. And they have this like compound in Tennessee where like it started out and they would all just go give birth there and like raise their kids together. But she's like a doula and a midwife and like all of that. So they have in one of their books, they talk about using kissing like during labor and like during big contractions to like try and make out, which every time I would be pregnant, like read about this stuff, I'd be like, oh, we should totally try that. And then as soon as I'm laboring, I'm like, get the fuck away from me.
Yeah.
Go in a different room. No one look at me. Like,
God, like
Yeah.
I've definitely like read and seen that, like even like on TV I've seen it. But I was all like, I'm also someone who wants to have, if God willing, like a natural birth. I was even like, put me in a pool. Like I don't even want to be in a hospital bed. And just like do it, you know, like primal style.
Yeah, yeah.
It like, you know, even those things like I romanticize and like we'll see what happens. Like I'm not gonna also be unrealistic with like knowing like if medical interventions are needed, I'm not gonna say no, you know, as long as the baby is healthy and like I'm healthy, you know, we'll do, you know, what we can, but we'll see how far breathing and kissing gets me.
well, now you have to do it. You have to be our experiment and let us know if it helps. But I mean, with all of that, like, you know, you go into it with your toolbox, right?
Yeah.
Things that you can use to try and keep you in a level space. And then just like you said, like if you get to a place where you've used your toolbox and you need outside help, then just being open to that helps. But like again, that's going into like that flexibility and the bending and weaving. Like it's
Yeah.
your world is somebody else's, and the
Right.
more flexible you are, the less likely you'll break.
That's actually the one, sounds probably maybe a little sadistic, but it's the one part of the pregnancy that I would do over and over and over again. Yeah, is giving birth and like how empowering. And this isn't for everybody, and everybody has a different experience, but both of mine were natural, and I like embraced the pain so much because I was like, this is so purposeful. Like this pain is for a reason, and this is what
Every
it's doing.
contraction, you think like, and I, again, this is all just like things that I've read and also things that I'm trying to like, a mindset that I'm trying to adopt is like, I think every pain and every contraction brings you closer to meeting your baby. So you embrace them like you're talking about. And I think like that probably helped you have your natural birth instead
Oh
of like
yeah.
fighting them. And like I've even heard like it's better to, instead of screaming and like being so stressed out and frantic, it's better to try to relax through those and breathe through those.
Yeah, absolutely. Matt would even say like Jada's was pretty intense, but and he was the one that's like, hey, it's okay if you want something at this point. Like you could definitely just take something and it's gonna be okay. And I'd be like, you need to step away. I'm stronger than you. And if you want to just admit that now, it's gonna be okay. Like
say it and get out. I think music was a big helper for like my easiest delivery by far was Ben, and that was at the Rose Hospital, and I had planned on getting in the water and everything. As soon as I got into the tub, I was like, nope, I hate this, get me out. And like as soon as, because I'm a big control person, and so for me, I felt very like
your body tells you too like what it needs.
Yeah, I didn't have like my footing and like things, but it's something we tried it again with Claire because she was born here. And we were like setting up the tub in our room, and I wound up staying in bed, but like having music and then trying to sing to it the whole time, like through contractions, really helped with like breathing. And I was able to and I went like super internal with Ben and like was able to breathe him out. Like he was the only one where it was like very soothing and like all of that. The girls were shit shows. Like, I mean, they went well, and Claire was delivered at home and like everything went fine and stuff. But like with hers, it's funny because from the outside, and like we even set up my camera and I have like a video of the whole thing, like where Vic said I was like very calm and very quiet and like just didn't want to talk to anybody. In my head, it was like a full war, like yelling, and like it just seemed like it was like so much. And you have like, for me, I have to just internalize, and I go like,
I'm like that with pain too though. Like and I've like talked to my like very close group of friends about this, like that I text every day. But I had a really bad flare-up episode that was like so painful to the point where I almost threw up. I was like gagging in the toilet. I thought I was gonna pass out and Keith was gonna like end up calling 911. That was like, and I'm someone I feel like I can tolerate a lot of pain just because I have had endo for so long. I remember like even in middle school, my periods were so bad that I had to like go to the nurse. Like I've had to go home and like I did throw up because it was so painful.
Right.
And that that episode, I was like finger was like almost on the button, like get me to the fucking hospital because I was in so much pain. Like I could not move.
Yeah.
And I was like, if I can, if this is anything like childbirth, I'm gonna be okay. Because I like just breathe.
Well, because when it gets like that, when it gets to like transition is like the crazy part of
Like to
delivery.
active labor.
When so and like now, because I've done it 4 times, like with Claire, I was able to look at Vic and be like, it's about to happen, because I could like feel transition come on. Because for me, I shake super bad, like the adrenaline hits and I
Really?
start to just like vibrate, like to where I can hardly talk. And so I was like, oh shit, and like could feel like she's gonna be here soon. And that like, but you're between like a rock and a hard place, but if you just pick one and go, like you're gonna be fine. And like the thing that helped me, like the 2 visualizing things, like so a flower, so like every contraction is helping you like bloom more so that they can descend. But the waves were like the big thing, because you can feel it build. Because the thing about contractions, they go away completely. As soon as it goes away, it's gone until the next one comes. And so you get a full reprieve. I mean, depending on how fast they're coming. But and towards the end, that's when it feels like you're not getting a break. So it feels like a bit crazier. But when you feel it build, I would think about like, okay, so the wave is coming, and I would like welcome it and be like, okay, like crash over me, like build, 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 crash. And then as soon as it like gets big and then you can feel it like fading away, I'd think about like the water pulling away from like the ocean, and it would be like so soothing for like that bit. And then you just have to take your big deep breaths, take a sip of Gatorade, and like hit the next one. It's just one big workout. Like if you look at it that way,
It really is.
you're getting your reps in.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think
Top set.
I even did that with Venna. I think I like counted, like, because they would be like, I would say, how many seconds do you want me to like push for? And I'm like, listen, you got to put this in sets and reps. Like, how much do you want me to do? And I'll do it.
Yeah.
Like,
I know, I love that. I think I saw that somewhere too, but I think that that's like I would probably need the same thing.
And you just have to be like, check, that one's done. That's
Yeah,
one
done.
less. Like no matter what, I am one contraction closer. And like they do end, no matter how much you might think like they're not going to. But and then with every kid, I've always been convinced I'm gonna poop out that baby. Like something went wrong.
Oh my God.
Like because the pressure does not feel right. But you're like, it was the wrong tube. But like man, it's the best. You feel like you can conquer the world after.
You really do. After that, like there was nothing after that. I really felt like I am Superwoman. Like there's nothing else like that can challenge me now. You feel so empowered. And whenever Matt is like in pain, I'm like, you don't know what pain is. Like no, you don't know what pain is. I don't care what you just did.
Oh, I'm just excited to like be in the moms club now too, and like to be able to relate to, my clients that have had kids and endured that, and then, transition into motherhood and finding themselves again. So I love this conversation. This is like I could probably talk to you guys about this all day.
I know, I'm excited. So we'll plan these like routinely. We'll do a little mom chats.
I love that.
Go through stuff. And so maybe we'll do good planning with it. Maybe do like questions or something like that ahead of time. Or
Yeah, I think that'd be great. That'd be a great idea.
And then that way we just kind of keep up on it, and then we can follow along with what your experience is with it, since we know a lot of people are going through similar stuff. And then, I'll just get to pick your brain postpartum. We're going to have all sorts of fun with it. So it'll be
Love
good.
it.
And
I
we've
love
got, yay. So, all right, well, guys, I wonder, oh, my brain went into how I'm going to organize these out loud. So I'm like, when do I want to release this one? So I'll probably pop it in on Thursday. Cool. So you guys know where to find us. All of our emails are our first name at Physique. Gosh, there's like a million different social media ways to find us on Physique now. Just if you add Physique in, there's the code, transformation, the studio, all the different pages. You can find us there if you guys have any questions or ideas or anything. And we'll talk to you next week.
Yeah, man. I
Bye.
hope you guys like this one. Thanks for listening.
Hey, bye guys.